Hi, this is Dr. Anj, and this is Dr. Anj's initial consultation. So, throughout an initial consultation, like if you were to go to a doctor or a psychologist, someone, a mental health practitioner for initial consultation, they get to know you, you get to know them, and sort of get an idea of what's what your journey with this professional is going to be like regarding your mental health. So for me, as Dr. Anj, our initial consultation is just going to talk about why I've set up this YouTube channel and what I hope to accomplish um, in this channel. So first up, I've got to say I am not a qualified doctor. Even though I am Dr. Anj, I'm not a qualified doctor. But what I do have is 30 years or so of experience with different mental health issues. And I think after 30 years, that kind of makes you an expert. So while I'm not an official doctor, I'm pretty sure I have got a PhD in mental health issues from the School of Life. So there you go. I also work as a peer worker. Now, peer work in a mental health setting means coming from a perspective of your own lived experience with mental health issues as a means of supporting and encouraging and offering hope to other people who may be going through their own mental health journey. So I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate in that I actually get paid to support people in that process. Usually, with being a peer worker, though, you can share a little bit about what you've been through, but most often you're listening to people and just giving them a safe space to share whatever they want to talk about. While they're going through their own mental health stuff. So it's an amazing job, and it says a lot about the mental health system, especially in Australia, that it's actually a paid job these days. Um, it's interesting as well in Australia, it is part of the federal government's approach in mental health policy to be offering peer support to people who have got mental health issues. So that's a great thing. If everyone could do a round of applause right now, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, just to be clear, I've got lived experience in mental health, but I'm not a qualified doctor. So if you want to know more about my mental health journey, you can have a look at the animation, Who is Dr. Anj? That kind of covers what I've been through. And through this YouTube channel, I do want to offer other people an opportunity to share their journey. So if that's something you'd like to be involved in, just shoot me an email. I've got a set of questions that I ask people about their mental health. You can remain anonymous. What I suggest is maybe creating your own character name. And yeah, I'll make an animation about your journey. And I do talk to people about how they want to be represented in the animation. So looking at my stuff on the YouTube channel, you'll get a feel for my type of artwork. And it's something that I want people to be involved in. As far as sharing their stories, I think it's so important when you do have mental health issues that you get to hear how other people cope with those conditions and what they do to not only cope but to thrive. You know, when I was initially very unwell, when I was about 18, I didn't know anybody who was coping with mental health issues. Most people I knew were either on a disability pension and in and out of psych wards, or unfortunately, a few people had committed suicide and were not able to live very long with having mental health issues. So back when I was 18 and in my early 20s, I didn't know that recovery was possible and having a normal life was possible, even if you had mental health issues. So as a peer worker, that's something really important to let people know that, yeah, you might have a hard time. You might be going through something mentally, like it might be a crisis, it might be circumstantial, and you can find ways to cope with that and get supports and use resources to get through it. And it might be just a one-off thing in your life, or you might be someone who has got mental health issues at different times of their life. But there is hope, and recovery is certainly possible. And with the right help and resources and supports, you can have a pretty normal life, or even an amazing life, or even an unusual life. I mean, who wants to be normal? You can have the life you want. Might not be easy, but you can work towards it. So that's something definitely that I believe in because I've lived it. Just going to pause. Okay, sorry, I'm back now. I'm really new to recording myself, animation. I've done artwork, I've done drawings and paintings for a long time, but turning them into digital images and I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I'm pretty new to all this technology, so please be patient. I'm sorry if it's not quite up to the standards of other people's channels. Hopefully, in time, as I learn how to use all this stuff, the quality will improve. I do want to set up a Patreon at some point, and I'll add those details at the end of all my videos and stuff. Basically, because I'd like to have really good quality stuff on this channel. I think the first thing I'll be getting is a decent microphone because I'm worried you can't hear me. At the moment, I'm just using a laptop that is very old and very slow. But hopefully, if we can get some support for the work on this channel, it'll mean improving the quality and the experience for people. Now, just getting back to our Dr. Anj's initial consultation. One of the things I say a lot is that mental health is a journey, not a destination. And what I mean by that is, maybe when I was a lot younger, it's definitely in my late teens and early 20s, I had this idea that one day I'd be fine, One day the depression would just go away. One day the trauma would stop tormenting me. One day I'd be just perfectly mentally sound. And then what would happen is every time the depression would come back, I'd feel really upset because it was like, damn, I thought I was past this and now it's here again. And then, especially after my 30s, over my 30s, I was very proactive in trying to have some mental stability. So I really worked hard to be mentally stable. And then when I got a job as a peer worker, it was kind of validating everything I'd worked hard to achieve. And then, about 18 months into being a peer worker, I got diagnosed with this post-traumatic stress disorder. And that was like such a shock for me because I was like, hang on, haven't I dealt with this already? I've been seeing psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors ever since I was 12, at different times in my life, but I've been in this so long. How can I suddenly regress? How can I suddenly, be back to square one in having to look at stuff that happened when I was a kid and having to find ways to cope? And I was really angry because I'm like, I've done this already. I've done this a million times. When do I get past it? But that's the thing. Mental health is a journey. It's not a destination. For most people, okay, there can be mental health struggles that are circumstantial. And what I mean by that is you can be very stressed. You can have a lot of stuff happen all at once, or maybe just one major issue just knock you off your feet. Say when there's been a death in a family and you're grieving and you're hurting and you're dark, in a dark place, and you're depressed and you want to be alone, and you get angry with people because they ask you stupid questions or they make insensitive comments about the person who's passed away, and whatever it is, that's like a circumstantial mental health issue. It's pretty normal to go through different parts of your life that are harder than others. But it's a situational, that's another way of calling it. It's probably the actual correct term, situational crisis. And you just need mental health support over that time. You might be on medication over that time. You might seek, if it's for grief, you might seek grief counselling so you can learn how to cope with grieving. That's situational. It's something in your life circumstances that have meant you're not coping and you need some help, and that's fine. It's still a valid part of life, and it's still something that you might need to get professional help for if you're not coping on your own. The other side of mental health is like more, they call it acute. That's like the technical jargon. But it's sort of like ongoing mental health issues. This is where there might be a formal diagnosis. Things like bipolar disorder, depression disorder, schizophrenia. These are more issues that you would be experiencing over your life. There might be times where things are fine and things are pretty good or stable, and then there might be times where you're unwell. And so that's where mental health can be a journey, because it will have ups and downs. And if it's more a life situation, like if it's more a mental illness that's going to be coming in and out of your life at times, it's really about learning how to cope with it, learning strategies, making a decision about whether you want to be on medication or not. If you do take medication, is it going to be just until, just to get you through a rough time, or is it going to be like a lifestyle choice? And you might decide different things at different points of your life. Like when I was in my 20s, I was single, I didn't have any kids. And to me, I wanted to see if I could cope without being on medication. I had a stay at a psychiatric hospital when I was 18. I was told I was going to be on medication for the rest of my life. And I was sort of like, I don't want that to be the rest of my life. And I had a support in deciding not to be on medication. And, sometimes I did really well when I wasn't on medication. Sometimes I didn't do so well when I wasn't on medication. But later, when I had my son and the depression came back really badly, first it was postnatal depression. And then the other time it was just full-on depression. And I couldn't function. I couldn't take care of my son. I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't work. And I was like, no, if taking medication is going to make this easier for me, then I am fine to take medication for the rest of my life, because I need to be able to function. And medication for me was a big part of just stabilizing myself. So that's part of the journey. You know what I mean? When I was younger, I think I thought I'd one day reach a spot where everything was going to be perfect and I was never going to get depressed again and life was going to be all rainbows and unicorns and butterflies. I haven't reached that point yet, and I've sort of thought, you know what, maybe that day's never going to come. That's what I was saying about the so many post stuff. Post-traumatic stress disorder. When I got diagnosed with that, I was like, man, so angry. I'm like, when does this end? When do we stop peeling the onion back and find layers and layers and layers of crap to deal with? Why can't I just get past all this? I was really angry. Unfortunately, that's part of life with mental health issues, that sometimes things will be going fine and sometimes everything blows up and you got to start doing the work again. You got to start talking to someone. You got to reassess if you take medication, look into what kind of treatments. So keeping that in mind, what I wanted to share is part of this channel is going to be covering different topics related to mental health. Should you take medication? What kind of treatment methods are out there? What to expect with different types of treatment? Hopefully going to find some inspirational stories as well. And also just sharing resources that I've personally found really helpful, and maybe even some amazing stories of advocacy or people out there in the mental health field who have done some amazing work and really opened the door for, we call them consumers. So if you are someone with a mental health issue and you use different services, you may be referred to as a mental health consumer. It's not the best word, someone should come up with something better. But from a consumer perspective, and over the history of advocacy in the mental health field, definitely in the last 20 years, I'd say, there's been some huge changes in how governments and public health policy is working with people who have mental health issues. Things can be pretty horrific. Like if you know anything about the history of mental health services, there are some really dark periods, especially in Western culture, and unfortunately, sometimes in developing countries, things can be still really horrific for people with mental health issues. So the fact that change can happen, and the fact that people who've had mental health issues have found their voice and found the strength to speak up and, work with government to create changes in policy and to, have the medical industry recognize that we are human beings. Even stuff like with trauma in childhood or trauma in life, the mental health field pretty much looks at mental illness as a chemical imbalance, and maybe that's valid. That's what the medication helps. But if you've had trauma in your life and you've got mental health issues, maybe public mental health policy should be trying to help you deal with the trauma, not just trying to medicate you. They're interesting ideas to explore. It's stuff that I'll be talking about on this channel, and it's stuff that I'll probably, share resources with so you can explore it in other channels as well, or TED Talks or books or whatever. Anyway, so I'm just checking my list. I think I've covered everything in our initial consultation. Definitely time-wise, I think we're approaching like 25 minutes, maybe half an hour. So definitely, good amount of time spent in our initial consultation getting to know each other. So as I said, I believe mental health is a journey, not a destination. I hope you're all traveling well. This is Dr. Anj, wrapping it up for now. I'll see you in my other videos. Cheers.